Josh Colle, Councillor of Ward 15 and Toronto Transit Commission Chairman. Talk about, first of all, when you were awarded that position, how happy were you? This was in 2014. How excited were you to receive that position?
It was great. I mean, I was reelected in 2014 and obviously wanted to do more at City Hall and had been focused on transit issues. And so then there's an opportunity to be the Toronto Transit Commission Chair. I certainly jumped at that opportunity and I was pleased that the Mayor and my council colleagues endorsed that and gave me their support.
And I know your father was a former commissioner as well, so it runs in the family. Did he give you any advice when you got this position?
It was interesting. I think it's probably the first time there's been a father-son combination of TTC chairs. So I actually did assemble all the chairs of the TTC together just to kind of hear their input from them and to get a sense of what has changed over time, what are some of the issues. And it was a really good conversation. I think there are about 10 of us, and you realize that there's some challenges that are really still have persisted for a long time. But I'm always happy to take any advice, and I get a lot of it in this position.
You're a school board trustee before this, so was there any, I guess, going from trustee to councillor, what was the biggest adjustment? Because I guess it's in the same realm of politics, right?
Yeah, I was a school board trustee, and then I actually I didn't run again, and I went back to kind of private sector and private life, and in my mind, I was done with public service, and here I am back in it. So there's certainly, you learn a lot about how serving a big publicly funded public organization works, responding to constituent concerns when people want to call because they've got an issue with their school, or their kid at their school, they do. So it's good. It's a good learning ground for that. But for me, it was more I envisioned it doing as just kind of community service, not as a career. I was still working full time in the financial sector, and then kind of put it aside and thought I was done with it, and lo and behold, I ended up running again for councillor in 2010.
So what was the reason why you got back in then? Was there a specific reason, or?
I think it was in part, in my neighborhood, I started to see a lot of things that I wanted to see changed or wanted to work on. Maybe having kids kind of changed it a bit too, and I always would, as I drove around or walked around or was on transit, would kind of point out things that I thought could be improved. Wow. And I know a few times, especially my wife would say, well, are you going to do something about it? or just talk about it? And I think that was part of the drive. And certainly watching City Hall from the outside, which I was still doing, recognizing that I thought I could contribute something down here to the discourse.
And speaking of your ward, you're heavily involved. And I know last month you did a cleanup. You guys did a cleanup in your ward. What made you want to do something like that, and how important is it that you guys continuously do that?
It's never ending, right? The work and to try and improve the community. And my kind of adage or my viewpoint is that I want to make sure that Ward 15 is better off than when I started. And so, 1 week it might be a cleanup, it might be a community safety meeting. The next day, tonight it's about some local developments and traffic issues. So I would say there's something like that, whether it be again a community meeting or cleanup or activity or action, almost every week. And then there are the longer term ones, like getting more transit in the ward, fixing Lawrence Heights and revitalizing that, renewing our parks, and a lot of initiatives and projects that take more than a week or a month or a year that I continue to work on, and I'm proud that as a community we've accomplished quite a bit already.
Speaking of transit, July is going to be the Pan Am Games, so that's probably big planning time for the TTC.
Yeah.
There's been some concerns such as like 5 o'clock in the morning, volunteers trying to travel, how are they going to access the subways? What is happening?
So we have quite a comprehensive plan in place as a TTC to deal with the added volumes, and obviously to also serve the venues where there's going to be spectators and athletes. We've also shifting the subway opening time a bit earlier during Pan Am, and augmenting some of the earlier bus service and routes. So we think we've got good coverage. Obviously, it's always hard to predict how many people will show up for an event like this. And my hope is that we get a great crowd that comes to Toronto, and it's a chance to show off the TTC and good service, but also the city in general. So we'll see, but I think we've got a pretty comprehensive plan in place that will involve, buses, streetcars, and subways to make sure people get to and from venues.
Perfect. And I think you've answered all my tough political questions, so now we're going to end this on a more joyful note. We're going to go some Twitter stuff. I know you love Girl Guide cookies. They taste very delicious. Why is that?
It's funny that I prefer the chocolate ones, and I think the other day in my house, because my nieces sold me a bunch, every time I open a box, the whole row of chocolate ones are gone and just the vanillas are left, which is disappointing. But I have 3 growing boys in my house, so that's to be expected.
And speaking of those 3 growing boys, they used to like a song called Spiky Spiky Porcupine Meets Pineapple.
Yeah.
Was this song constantly played at your house at one point?
We've got a lot of songs that rotate through, and it's actually kind of fun because one of my issues at City Hall is I'm just a big music fan, and one of the issues I push is to kind of the Toronto music industry. So I actually take my boys to a lot of shows and concerts. So I was at the music festival on the island with my oldest one on the weekend,
Nice.
and had my middle guy at the Horseshoe Tavern the other day. So there's kind of constantly music being played in the car, on headphones in the house, and so that was one of them. But there's always a song of the day.
Gotcha. I got some photos for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Perfect. And you're also a movie fan.
Yeah.
So Star Wars, can you hold this photo up for me? You're excited for the release of Star
Very
Wars.
excited.
Tell us why.
Because I probably was the age where when they first came out, they were a big hit, and I got into it. And the funny thing was, then having kids to kind of watch it again through their eyes was kind of fun. So now we've kind of re-embraced it again as a family. So it'll be fun when this comes out to relive all of that. It better be better than some of the recent ones.
For sure, exciting. And here is a gentleman from your ward.
Yeah.
His name's T, if I'm W.
This is Wellesley.
Tell us a little bit about him.
Wellesley's actually a great guy. He's got a big family, lives in Lawrence Heights, and he's one of these people who does hundreds of hours of community service. And so whether it's tending to gardens or community meetings, safety walks, he's always there. So this was actually just before a community safety walk, and of course he was there, and he's got a great family, and it's kind of probably a great example of how involved I find people have been in the Lawrence Heights community, but in all the TCH communities in my ward.
That's phenomenal. So this is Reggae Lane, and I know it's a big thing in your ward. Talk about reggae music, the impact, and I know, there's reggae is big.
So a lot of people don't know, but Eglinton Avenue West around Oakwood and Dufferin, at one point in the late 70s and 80s, would have been one of the epicenters of reggae music in the world, outside of Kingston, Jamaica. And there was so much happening there, and as being a music fan and loving music history, especially in Toronto, it's sad to see so little of our music history in this city recognized and celebrated. So Eglinton's going through transformation right now. We've got the subway or the crosstown subway coming through, and so it's going to change even more. And so I was my mind was that let's celebrate and kind of cement some of this history so that people know about the great things that happen on Eglinton. And so I renamed the laneway Reggae Lane, and out of that has come we're going to have a heritage plaque, we're going to have some murals, and some events and festivals around it too. So it's kind of really kicked off a lot of fun activity with recognizing that that local history.
Phenomenal. I got 4 more, so stick with me.
Yeah, good.
So you met Givenco, I think that's the name, when he first came to Toronto.
Yeah.
How excited are you for Toronto FC, and talk about that
I
moment?
just need Toronto FC to win. I mean, I need any Toronto sports team to win. It was great to meet him. This was an event in conjunction with the Italian community. In my ward, there's a very significant Italian community at Columbus Center and up Dufferin Street and all those neighborhoods. So it was a great fit for the community. Amazing how young the guy was, and but at the same time, anything that can get a Toronto sports team winning, I will take it. I'll cheer for anyone if I can get that happening.
Toronto got to start winning.
Yeah.
And this is when you won the re-election.
This is my first.
The first in 2010?
Yeah, so
Wow.
I can tell my little guy was probably in bed at the time.
Talk about how excited you were in this photo.
That was great. It was actually kind of surreal because I remember when I won, I've worked on a lot of elections, over my days, my life, and the results came in so quickly. Because of the new ballot counting system, that I actually didn't really believe it. So it, to me,
Yeah, you don't seem like you're.
I
sure, right?
I kind of really sunk in later that night.
Wow.
And I remember someone called from my campaign office, said, "You won," and I said, "No, I didn't. It's only 10 after 8." And they're like, "You did?" I'm like, "No, call me back later." So it was a kind of a surreal moment, and then obviously my family was excited, and later in the night it really started to sink in.
Congratulations.
Thanks very much.
2 more to go. And what is this gentleman telling you here? We really want to know, I guess, the insight. What was he saying there?
So one of the things that people don't often see is that in council chambers, there are 45 of us, and there's a lot of discussion and, kind of work that happens on the floor that I actually think sometimes it looks messy what we do, but it helps us move policy along and gets us to better votes and And this was actually a counselor colleague of mine. We share the same first name, Josh. That's Josh Matlow. And I'm pretty sure this was during a budget debate in maybe my second year, when a group of us had kind of banded together to put a package forward that saved quite a few city programs. And so it was, during the kind of the tense moments back and forth on the floor of council, probably working out some strategy together on how to get the votes passed.
Wow. And I think it's important we end this last photo on a St. Mike's note, knowing you're the president of the St. Mike's Alumni Association. They won the OFSA basketball championship this year. How excited were you for St. Mike's? Because they're down on the football side, but the basketball side they've been up.
They've been great. I actually saw this team play in the St. Mike's tournament. Took my kids to see them play, and I was just blown away by the talent of the St. Mike's team, even the teams they played. And I think it's a testament to basketball in Toronto. I don't even think the city appreciates how good it is at the high school level. And the St. Mike's team was the best in Canada. So there's not often you can say that. So congratulations to Coach Zauner and the team, and I'm sure they're going to do well next year too.
I know you're very active on Twitter. Where can people find you on social media, your sources, where they can connect with you?
I guess I'm at Josh Colle on Twitter, it's Josh Colle on Facebook, and I don't know if I'm going to do anything beyond that.
Maybe Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram or something. Or I don't want to name some of the other ones, but yeah, it's it's an effective way to communicate. But I also realize that in a ward like mine, with a lot of seniors, a lot of new Canadians, a lot of people who actually don't even have access to the internet and a computer, a working computer, I still have to do the kind of the direct outreach, and that's door to door. Paper flyers, being out there in the community. So it's a great tool to kind of communicate with a wider audience, but you still have to balance it with kind of those old-fashioned ways.
And my last question, can we get a sneak peek? Will you be rerunning again, and how long do you plan on staying in politics for?
I always plan to be running again. You always have to think that way, but I also think that politics should be service, and it's not necessarily something that you do forever, and so it's important for you to take a step away at some times and let other people, kind of do their civic duty. And so we'll see where things go, but I've got lots to accomplish still.